Hello all and welcome to Shatter Our Souls with Novari. And we are officially starting the true challenge of Mario Kart Wii's itemless run. Today we are tackling the Shell Cup at 150cc. Now, while I've mentioned in the past that Mario Kart Wii has a penchant for what is known as karting the player, this is the first real test. See, up until this point, 50 and 100cc tends to have a habit of allowing a lot more to go wrong without really punishing the player too much. At 150, however, a few things change. First and foremost, you have access to every form of vehicle that the game can throw at you, meaning that, effectively, you have as many options as there are karts, tripling, quadrupling your potential choices for what works best for you as a player. Secondly, the AI gets a heck of a lot harder. This includes getting faster and far more aggressive. I don't know how I dodged that. But that means that in many cases, I'm going to end up in circumstances where the game is going to try to destroy me. And that's great, because that means that we are officially at a point where if I make a mistake, any mistake, I'm hoopla. And sometimes that mistake is simply not using the items at all, because that's exactly what the challenge ends up being. So with Peach Beach here, Peach Beach is kind of your introduction to 150cc. Couple that with Yoshi's, I believe this is like a Yoshi circuit, I can't recall offhand, but the one with the giant egg in the middle. This one ends up being probably one of the easier ones. Wide open track, lots of space, couple of boost panels, plenty of options for the player to really dive into what can I get away with? What would work best for me in this circumstance? And reality is that this track also has some of the shortest laps. And short tracks, especially ones that only have, 3 laps compared to the 1.5 minute laps of the longer ones, end up having any issue that might crop up being exponentially worse on the player. Because if your lap is only 30 seconds, that means you have 1.5 minutes at most to correct any concern that might come up, which really means you got a difference of seconds. And at 150cc, with the increased speed that the game is trying to push at you, you're also dealing with an increased, shall we say, pressure to force, or there's increased pressure to make sure that you are in the right place at the right plot at the right time at all times. And that's something huge for this run. Because if you're in the wrong spot and the game decides, yeah, that's that, well, you're kind of hoopla. So 150cc is probably possible. But I would argue that the AI and general stage layout, as well as bad luck, might come back to haunt me on numerous occasions. Now, let's be real. I kinda like this game. I've enjoyed these tracks for years. And some of them are gonna be harder than others. An example of a harder than average track is actually Ghost Valley here. See, Ghost Valley is one of those tracks that, love it or hate it, it's a high-end track, a little bit on the faster side, a little bit on the harder side. 90-degree turns, you have a lot going on in the above the player, which can also be distracting. This ends up being what I would consider a medium to high-end track in terms of difficulty. Reality is, it's easy enough to beat, but we also have to acknowledge that any changes to expectations, be it a opponent that gets a sneaky shot in, can absolutely brutally wreck the player's capabilities of success. But at now 45 points and second place being at 36, as long as I don't get last, I can effectively guarantee that the Shell Cup is a success. Now, why do I say that? Well, reality is that at any given point in time, if you get first place in 3 races, that effectively means that the highest number of points that your second place racer can get is 36. And this is a huge, huge bonus, because it means that if you get a minimum of 6 points, you will tie for first place if they get first. Now that does mean that you're going to end up probably middle of the pack, 6th-ish, to make that happen. But statistically speaking, getting 6th is a lot easier than getting first. So, theoretically, there's plenty of options, or plenty more chance once you've beaten the first 3 races to really showcase that you had it all along. Now, I don't like going for 6th. I don't even like settling for 2nd. But reality is, I gotta do what I gotta do, and we're gonna showcase just how far this Yoshi can go. Speaking of, going forward, I'm going to continue with the random character selection, random kart selection mentality, but reality is that every time I get a kart combination, so to speak, that is unfavorable, it is going to hit me a lot harder going forward. As I said, 150cc is unbelievably harder compared to what the game prior, or compared to what the game has previously pushed at us. So that is something to note. Anywho, at the end of the 3rd lap here, going into the 2-minute mark, we're sitting in first place, 2nd place, and I think our odds are pretty good. Now, reality is that without the use of items, our primary hope of getting high scores and high-end placements is almost entirely dependent on whether or not I can get precise movement around corners. Now, cornering is something that... Awesome! Second place didn't even hit 45, meaning we could have technically come in last. Technically. Anyways, as I was saying, as cornering is going to be our huge focus from here on out, high-end karts and kart combinations, admittedly like the Mach Bike and Daisy, are going to be huge going forward. But that, I suppose, is going to be a discussion for another day. Next time, we'll be tackling, I believe it's the Banana Cup 150cc. Anywho, if you like what you see, drop a like, leave subscribe, and we'll catch you next week where we're going to continue to showcase that you can beat Mario Kart Wii without using items.